Near Penkridge in Staffordshire, there was a large Georgian country house called Teddesley Hall. Unfortunately, the hall was demolished in 1953, but there is still quite a lot of it left. Come with me as we take a look. Teddesley Hall was the ancestral home of the Littleton and later the Hatherton families. It was designed by Charles Cope Trubshaw of Little Heywood. It was built in the mid-1700s on the site of a much smaller Teddesley Lodge, and it was built by Edward Littleton, who was the MP for Staffordshire and the Chief Secretary for Ireland, and he moved into the hall in 1754 before it was even completed. The whole of Teddesley Park is private land, and we were given permission to come and explore. The buildings were far too dangerous to go inside, although I have got a 3-metre selfie stick, so I did have a look through some of the windows. The two buildings that are still here are the service buildings. One was kitchens, stores and servants' rooms, and the other one was the stable block. It really would have been a stunning place. I wish I'd have been able to see it when it was fully standing, because the impression that I get from this whole area is that it wasn't just for show, this was a working house. Edward Littleton created a large park around the hall, which is still there today. We saw deer as we were driving up to it. It's a stunning place. But his heir, Edward Walhouse, became the first Baron Hatherton in 1835, and he created a 1,700-acre farm around the hall. And by 1860 this became a free agricultural college. The whole area is still farmed, and it's farmed by the original home farm, which is still a working farm. It is such a shame to see these buildings in this way, but I have got to be honest, I can't really see what this could ever be. Possibly turning it into luxury apartments, with maybe 3 or 4 in each building. Because I appreciate that being in the middle of a working farm, they're probably not going to want loads of people here. But just look at this area. You're literally in the middle of nowhere. It's just absolutely stunning. But these two service blocks aren't the only remnants of the original hall. There's piles of stone that are parts of the original door, the original lintels, doorsteps, that sort of thing. And you really can get a sense of how big this hall was, because the entire foundations are still here. And it's really sad that the hall isn't there anymore, but I do love that we can still see the shape and the layout and the rooms and what the floor was made of and that sort of thing. A lot of great country halls and houses that we've lost in Staffordshire have completely gone, so we're lucky to have anything left at all of this one. And the great thing is, if someone did want to come and rebuild something here, there's a real rough outline of what it should look like, the shape it should be and the size. I think there were some plans a few years back to rebuild this and turn it into a hotel or something, but please let me know if you've heard anything different. It would make a great hotel, but there's nothing really anywhere near. Maybe a hotel and spa. Beautiful place for a spa. And I love this interesting shape that was at the front of the house. I think it gives you a real idea of what it would have looked like. You can see there at the front what the hall would have looked like against the service wings. And just the sheer size of it. I mean, the buildings that are still here now are absolutely huge. This one wing is a hall in itself. I can't even begin to fathom how big the hall itself must have been. 5 generations of the family lived here until 1930, when the 3rd Lord Hatherton died and the family moved to Hatherton Hall. And I love this. Each one of these rooms is a small room with a fireplace in. So this building must have been the servants' quarters. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'd be happy with one of these little bedrooms now with a lovely little fireplace in and that view out over the park. Some of these rooms have even still got the wallpaper on the walls. It's just a really sad sight. It wasn't long after the family left that the army requisitioned the hall to hold prisoners of war. And then when the army left, the hall remained empty, and the 5th Lord Hatherton sold most of the Littletons' estates in 1953, including the hall, and unfortunately the new owner demolished it in 1954. But luckily he did keep the service buildings for storage, which is why we can see them today. Unfortunately, it's the same story for many of these grand houses in Staffordshire and all over the country. Most of the young lads and the workers went to war and didn't come back. First World War and Second World War, and I don't think many of these halls ever recovered from it. The Second World War definitely took its toll on these grand country houses, and there was a huge change for everyone, and I think that's why so many of them didn't survive. And obviously, this was before listing and protecting these buildings, so anyone that owned them could just do what they wanted with them, and that's why so many of them were demolished. People just could not afford to run them anymore. Especially for halls this big, and this far out in the sticks, there wasn't really many options. Many people sold the contents, and even sold the bricks, to get some money back after the war. I don't know what the future holds for Teddesley Hall, or what's left of it, but thanks for watching, and don't forget to check out my other local history videos, and my website, The Red Haired Stokey.